5 years with them. And during my time with the IRS, I learned a lot about taxes, how to enforce the tax laws. And I'd like to start out by saying that I look at the all-powerful IRS like the police department. They are here to enforce the laws that Congress passes. They don't make the laws, they don't write the laws. It's Congress that does that. For us, well, maybe, maybe not. But the IRS is charged with enforcing the laws, and they do a pretty darn good job of it, much to our delight, our displeasure, whatever side of the road you want to be on. But my job is to help keep you safe and out of trouble. And my, I like to say I want to help you beat, not cheat the IRS. So thank you for joining me today. I'm not sure exactly what Scott went over because I wasn't able to join you on July 3rd, and I don't want to repeat things that he might have said, but what I will tell you is that um, you get to you don't always get to choose whether you issue a W-2 or a 1099. They're two different things for two different purposes for two different types of team members. It all depends on lots of different stuff. So now let's go to our next slide. So who's working for you and what does the IRS think? So many of you said that you've got employees, that you issue W-2s, that you have independent contractors, that you issue 1099s. And either way, they're workers. So the IRS wants to know um, what category are they really? Are you treating them correctly? And it's to your benefit to make the right choices because if you don't choose wisely, it can cost you. And I want to say that there's nothing, I like to quote Justice Learned Hand, there is nothing sinister in so arranging one's affairs to pay your lowest legal tax. But you want to make sure that you're doing it in the correct way. So we want to make sure that you're not um, miscalculating. Now, if you do misclassify, you can wind up owing back taxes, penalties, interest. It can be an open door for an audit. Now, what is an audit? It's I'm you can tell by my hair color that I'm old enough to remember back in the earlier days of um, comedy on television when I can't remember who it was, but it, the the invitation was to have a cup of tea with Goldie. And I don't remember which comedian would do that, but they're not here to have a cup of tea with you. They're here to find out what are the answers to their questions because you filed something that has raised their antennae thinking maybe we need to get more information. So that is what an audit is. They want more information, and um, I always want you to understand what it is that you're reporting. Now, here on the slide, we've got three columns: the feature and the W-2 employee versus the 1099 contractor. When you have a W-2 employee, um, they do not really pay, they do pay their own taxes, but you are withholding from their wage. They don't have to pay an estimated tax on their self-employment income. When you've got self-employment, I like to use my fists. When you're an employee, you pay half of the self-employment tax. The employer pays the other half out of their pocket. But when you're an independent contractor, You pay both halves. That's what self-employment is, both halves. You still pay the income tax, but now we're talking about Social Security and unemployment. So the employer withholds from the employee. Um, but on the independent contractor, they pay it all. The employee generally is providing the tools to do the work, the place to do the work, the time scheduled to do the work. The 1099 has more freedom. They usually use their own tools and they oftentimes set their own schedules. Now, Scott, you're the event guy, the wrangler on this group. When you have your own events, do you, I'm asking you because I don't know. Do you engage other people to help you in this event?
No,
Okay, so you're a solo guy. You're
I'm
you're
the
the
correct.
man, the
I'm the
man.
guy. Just
Okay,
me.
okay. And but when people are engaging your services, they have where you go to their event, their venue, okay, and do you generally bring your own work tools,
Yes, I bring everything.
your whole sound system
Hmm.
setup, keying into whatever event um, sound options are available to you, right?
Yes,
Okay. So, but you're not setting your own schedule really as far as being there for the event. It's a certain time, certain location, but you get to prepare for that on your own time. And
yes,
there's a lot more preparation time than there is in event time, isn't there?
yes.
Okay. And um, so you are truly when you do that, then they're paying you as a 1099 person, correct?
If it's a corporate client, they will send me a 1099. But if it is a social client, such as a bride and groom, they will not. But I'm still responsible for that income.
Right, because the bride and groom, it's a personal thing. It's not a business
Correct.
entity for them getting married. Um, so that's great. But yes, you are responsible for reporting your income. The government wants to make sure that you're reporting, all income is taxable unless it's specifically excludable, and nothing is deductible unless it's specifically allowed. So there's lots of rules that most people think they know, but don't actually know all the fine points, and that's what gets us in trouble. When I've been paying taxes for a long time, probably over 60 years, and always from the beginning, doing it myself, thinking I was doing everything right. And in the earliest days, the returns were simple and thought it was correct. And I would get a notice from the IRS, and I'm thinking, I was angry. I thought, I read all the instructions. I did everything right. What did I do wrong? And it was a simple little thing, just simple that my eyes didn't see. As my returns got more complicated, I was able to use more tools to do my returns correctly. And thank you, God, I'm on the straight and narrow because that's what I want to help you be on the straight and narrow also, although uh, paying the lowest legal tax. So there's a lot about control and um, timing and tools. So the common law rules are about how much control do they have over your work, the behavior, the relationship, the financial. Um, Now, do you control if you are paying someone else? Now, Scott, you're a solo guy. Do you ever have to pay anyone else in what you do? Probably not.
Yes.
Oh,
On
yes, you do.
on very rare occasions, I will 1099. um, when I say staff, I really mean some other talent that is not a photo booth or not another service, but that might provide some piece or additional piece of entertainment. For example, if they ask for a DJ and an MC, then I might hire a DJ to play the music, and then I would be the master of ceremonies for that event. And in which case, that DJ may or may not provide equipment, but they're hired as a 1099, if that makes sense.
Yes, because are they going to provide their own playlist and
Yes,
run
yes,
the
they'll
sound
do,
booth?
yes, yes, they'll
Yeah.
do all that on their own.
So they're independent in that regard. They're not
Correct.
your now. They if you were a different entity and you maybe there are people here who employ other people not as an employee but use their services, their tools. Um, where was I going with that thought? You you might have an employee if you're a large enough company. You might have
Correct.
employees that you send out to handle events that people want to schedule with you. Um,
Stacy is a really good example because she has her own photo booths that she manages. Then she has other photo booths that other people manage the event for. And then occasionally she'll get Jeremy with his equipment to do an event. So she falls into all three of these categories, if you will, where she's a solopreneur because she's doing the photo booth herself. Then she has what she thinks are subcontractors with her equipment doing events, and then once in a while she'll do an event for another fellow photo booth company, or he will do an event for her. I don't know
and
how she keeps it straight, but she's nodding.
and that's where she gets her mixed bag of
Correct.
W-2s and 1099s. Now, you as the person, you might receive both a W-2 and a 1099. Um,
Correct.
but if you do, then you want to look at what are my different responsibilities for the people that I do the 1099 work for, as opposed to the people I do the W-2 work for.
And knowing
So
the difference is crucial. Otherwise, again, you could find yourself in hot water.
now generally a W-2 employee will have work that's ongoing. An independent contractor might have one and done. Um, Lots of times, many times during the year. Um, and if you, as the person writing the check, um, offer benefits to the person who's working, generally that's more of an employee than it is an independent contractor. So anytime questions arise, I'm happy to um, entertain your questions. So here we have somebody who's been misclassified. Um, they were paid monthly. They worked regular hours. They used a company, this is for an administrator. They used the company computer and they answered directly to the owner. How how should be how should they be classified? What would the IRS call them? And if they got a 1099, would that be right or not? So,
I'm guessing not, since it was misclassified. Example number one.
yeah, thank you, Pearl. That's a good hint, isn't it? But it's true. This person, if they're paid on a monthly basis, they work regular hours, they use company equipment and tools, and they're answering directly to the owner of that company, they should be an employee who gets a W-2.
So, Nellie, given this example, I have a project manager and I do pay her monthly. and we meet once a week to go, here's what we're doing, but I don't control when she does that work. I don't like she uses her own computer, her own tools. So I'm trying to figure out, am I in this interesting gray area? Is would the IRS think she's an employee? I mean, I don't pay her benefits or anything like that. And last year is the first year, so we did a 1099 for her. But I'm like, where is the semi squishy-ish line?
You're doing great, Pearl, because she's using her own tools on her own time. It's okay that you pay her once a month. It's okay that you meet with her because you want to make sure that you're in agreement, but she's providing the effort on her own time with her own equipment. And so
Hey,
I think you're spot on.
I have a question for Pearl though. Do you pay her the same amount every month?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Unless there was something additional that she would provide.
What,
Right?
right. No, no, I was just
Yeah, I mean,
wondering. Yeah.
like, and like we do a couple of events, and so if she helps me with events, I'll pay extra for that. But otherwise, for just the project management monthly, it's the same amount every month. So,
Thank you.
okay, that just calmed my little heart because after Scott's thing, and I was like, I don't know, is she in a play? I, I just don't want, I don't want, is Nellie, I don't want the IRS anywhere near me. I'm like, just,
No, 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 no.
But
Nobody
Nellie,
does. Nobody does. Um,
Nellie, I have a question, kind of a follow-up to what Pearl just asked.
sure.
Through Duo Cotillo, it's just the two of us. We never hire anybody else, so that's all very simple. I'm also board chair for a nonprofit orchestra. Um, the musicians who play in the orchestra, of course, all have their own instruments that they bring, but and they have a choice of whether to play a concert or not. Rehearsals are at a set time that are, if you're going to play, you're going to be at the rehearsal at this time. The concert is at a set time. We've been paying them as 1099s, and I think that's probably correct, but thought I'd at least ask.
Yes. Do you go by Robert or Bob?
Robert.
Robert, that would be correct because you do not have the concert hall. You do not have the concert schedule. You're not the maestro, in charge of this whole thing, but it's any person in an orchestra must agree to participate in the rehearsal schedules and, show up for the performance. So your 1099, it would be perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Okay. Any other questions at this point? And
As
I'm,
long as we have a pause, I'm going to mention that the notes from my previous meeting that come directly from irs.gov are in a text document that I have put into the chat. It says W-2 or 1099. And when you save the chat, it does not save files. So you need to download that before you leave.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. So now let's look at example number 2, where a designer was given a 1099. This is an interior designer. She set her own hours. She worked remotely. She had multiple clients. She owned all the tools that she used in her work. And she got a 1099. And what did the IRS think? What did they do? Well, Pearl, given these, um,
well, I would have thought she'd be a 1099. Apparently, she's a W-2, but
no,
did
no,
she?
you're absolutely right. She's a
Oh,
1099.
okay.
So they did good. There was no misclassification on this one. So,
Oh, so this is a
Nellie, you're
trick
so
question.
sneaky.
well, did they misclassify or did they not? So,
No, I appreciate that because I was like,
yeah,
well, I would have thought this. So it's good to know that my thinking is not incorrect.
you're good. You're doing fine. So, we've already talked a little bit about where do you fit in, what do you issue, what do you receive. Now, when you get a 1099, there are two kinds of 1099s, miscellaneous or NEC. In the beginning, not too long ago, there was only one kind of 1099, and it covered everything. But now the IRS has decided, oh, we better clarify. The miscellaneous is used more for rents and other doctors, medical performance things, medical services, but the NEC is non-employee compensation. And that's what we use for the people on our team, NEC, and that's pretty much the difference. Um, if you issue the wrong one, or if you receive the wrong one, you still need to report the income, but I think people are waking up to, oh, I better make sure I'm using the right form. And this year, there's going to be a lot with all of the new tax law changes. Every year, there's something new to look at. There will be changes to the forms themselves, so we want to pay attention to what are the little boxes we can fill in and which ones can we leave empty. So there's never an easy route to any of this. Now, you need to ask yourself 5 things. Do you tell them when, where, and how to do their job? Do they use your tools? Are they showing up at your place of business? Like, um, I'm thinking about restaurants. If I'm a cook and I show up at Denny's to flip pancakes and fry eggs, I'm at their restaurant, I'm at their kitchen, I'm at their hot mess place, and I'm using everything they have, and I'm showing up at certain times. So, they expect me to know how to cook, but they're going to want me to cook it in their style. And
I'm
I
gonna,
can't work for anyone else.
yeah. Oh,
I mean, I don't have time during those
okay.
hours.
Hold on. See, I was going to expand upon this and ask, but I know lots of chefs that work at Denny's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They work at a different restaurant Tuesday, Thursday, and on the weekend they might even work in a food truck. That doesn't make them an independent contractor. They're still an employee, correct?
Correct. They're an
Okay.
employee for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They're an employee for the other Tuesday, Thursday. As far as the food truck goes, is it their food truck? Are they
Ah,
self-employed?
see, yeah, there's the good question.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
Okay.
Greg, hold on 1 second and carry on, Nellie.
Oh, now I was gonna say GJDJ, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
And it's
Um,
it's slow. It's slow in the tongue twisting there. So go ahead.
that's the reason why I did it. What about for bartenders? Scott and I both know bartenders that float from one venue to a different venue, then to a BPOE, for example, or the
That's an
vet
Elks Lodge.
center, and so on. Are they a independent contractor or are they employees?
My thoughts, uh, based on what you've told me, would be they are employees for the different bars that they're going to because it sounds to me like they're going on a regular basis to one location. And if I'm the bar owner and I want a bartender, I expect anybody I hire, I expect to know how to do the job that I'm engaging them for. But they're using my bar equipment, they're using my back bar supplies, they're using my blenders, my shakers, my jiggers, and you know, that's an employee. If then they're going to tend bar at different events, then they could be independent because they're not going to go to the same event time after time, you know, a wedding, a special event. I'm going to have I've collected weddings, but I'm not going to have more than one wedding at a time. Um, so does that answer your question?
It does. And thank you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Okay. So it's a mixed bag. So they should be getting both W-2s and 1099s from the people employing them. Now, they're not going to get a 1099 from the bride and groom because that's not their business. However, if I am a business that I'm trying to think of who might be like um, at an ongoing event, even if it's quarterly or semi-annually or annually.
Well, I can give you an example, Nellie, because
Thank you, Pearl.
I do that. I do freelance work for larger event production companies as part of my business. And so for them, I actually do get a W-2 from them. They have an HR firm that actually hires me on their behalf, and they pay me weekly through that way.
Beautiful.
But I've also done work for said event management company where it was just like a one-off 4 week thing. And so they just hired me directly. Like I just sent them an invoice directly. Same company, just different sets of projects, different scenarios. Because the big events, they usually could span several months or even a year. So then I just get hired on as, like I said, as an employee, but from their HR firm. So that's why I say it all depends. You could be
Yeah.
one person, even with one company or one client, and have different relationships with them depending on the project you're working on or the thing that you're doing.
I
Thank
think
you.
what was key there, Pearl, is that you said that you send them a contract that clearly sets you up as an independent contractor versus an employee. Employees don't send people contracts
No,
or
I actually get a
agreements.
contracts both ways.
Um, but okay,
Initiating.
interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So I have a contract. I actually have a signed contract, even though I get paid weekly and get a W-2 through HR, but it started with
But
a
that's a
signed
one
contract.
time that contract delineates
It's
the
for one project. For them, it depends on the project, the size and scope of it. Um, yeah. So, but anyway, I'm just saying that,
gray area. That's all I can say.
well, I mean, either way, I get a W-2 from them though, so it's not a gray area. It's very clear cut from the in that sense. But for the other thing, for like I did another project with them in December, that was for 1 week. So I asked if I could, so I sent them a or they sent me a contract signed, and then they just paid the business directly versus me directly. So yeah.
Okay. See, there's little fine lines of separation. Thank you, Pearl and Scott, for contributing. So, and we've talked about, are they an employee generally during, let's use office hours, 8 to 5, they're going to show up at your place of business. They don't have time during those hours to work for someone else. Yes, they can work for someone else after they've completed your hours. So, but generally, I don't want anybody that I hire here in my office to be working for somebody else when they're working for me on my time. So that's the key. So what happens if you misclassify, if you've made a mistake? And if you realize you've made a mistake, you can correct it. But if the IRS finds you first, you want to, they're going to assess back taxes that should have been paid. They're going to assess back FICA taxes, Social Security, Medicare. When you are paying the worker correctly, the employee pays half and the employer pays half. But if you have misclassified and should have been paying them a W-2 and didn't, the employer who gets caught in the net here is going to pay both halves of the Social Security. And instead of the one who did the work. Now, when that happens, the employer who paid half the Social Security, if that person is still working for them in the next year or the year following the year that this payment was made, can attribute the employee's share to be reported on their W-2. But it everything is fluid and you never know, is that person still working for that employer? you know, but there will be late filing penalties. There, you could be lighting a fire under wage and labor divisions. Um, I don't do a lot of labor representation. And you can have state unemployment and workers' comp violations. So it's it's expensive. You know, you don't want trouble. And if you have found that you have made a mistake, um, or even if you want to inquire, you can file a form SS8. Anyone can file, whether it's a worker or a business, and then the IRS will determine, is this a W-2 or is this a 1099? And if the IRS makes that decision, it's binding and you're stuck with it. So you want to make sure that you've got all your I's dotted and your T's crossed when dealing with the Internal Revenue Service.
Would you suggest filing just to determine, or?
No, not unless you were really had a question about it.
Okay.
Although if someone who making the payments has misclassified and treated a worker as issuing a 1099 because it's easier than doing the W-2 reporting forms, and you know that can be a real headache. They've misclassified, and a lot of people are treating workers as 1099 independents when they are not. So that worker might want to file the SS8 and say, look, this is what my boss is doing. He's my boss. I'm his lackey. Um, I want a W-2. I want them to pay half of this FICA. They won't know that it's called FICA, Federal Employment Contributions Act. So if that worker files the SS8 and the IRS makes a determination, then they're going to go back to the employer and say, look, this is a wake-up call for you. Shake them by the shoulders and say, you know, we've got to knock some sense into you. And the best way we know how to do that is to hit you in the wallet. So it's interesting how that goes.
If you haven't made the connection yet, clearly you need somebody like Nellie to help you with your taxes. And second, Pearl mentioned that the company that she works for has an HR firm that manages this, and they typically know what they're doing. So if you're at all in doubt, get a professional like Nellie to manage your paperwork, and possibly, if you're large enough, consider having an HR company manage this end of the business for you so that you can focus on what you do best, which is whatever your piece of entertainment is.
Thank you, Scott. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So I like to say fix it before they find it. There is uh, a voluntary classification settlement program where you can, if you've been treating someone as a 1099 and they really should have been a W-2, you can file this form 8952 to apply for reclassification of workers, moving them from the one form to the other. But if you do that, if you're like coming forward, confessing to your mistake, it's like confessing to the police. You caught me, I did it, you know, please don't kill me. You know, you're going to pay money, but if you volunteer this before they know about it, your penalties are reduced. There's a total calculation on, you don't have to pay 100% of what you should have withheld. You're going to pay less, and that's so much better than full price. So you want to make sure that you are audit proofing your hiring. My people are blocking my screen. So you want to document everything. Have written contracts, use the correct tax forms, be consistent in how you are treating your workers. And once you make a decision, pray that it's the right one and just stay with that. So when in doubt, reach out. I like to say I am the IRS insider because I worked 5 years for the IRS. I know how they act. I know what they want. I know what they're going to ask you. Although it's the organization is made up of individuals and each one is unique and some are better managed than others and personalities and education and what can they retain and how do they treat you. They're not there to be nice, although I was as an auditor, I was away on what they call an audit trip. We were out of the Phoenix area, went up to Prescott, and we were working out of a hotel. And um, they call that, it's not really a field audit, it's just an out of town. IRS agents are different than IRS auditors. Auditors deal with 1040s, and agents deal more with higher income companies. And in the hotel where we were, a taxpayer came in. He was there before his CPA, who was representing him, was there, and we just had a little gentle conversation. And I was curious about his work, expressed true interest, and do I look like a vulture? No, but I was an auditor. So he just naturally answered the questions. I was trying to make him feel at ease. And then his CPA arrived, and then I got into the audit. Prove this, prove that. Well, tell me about this, tell me about that. And then I was able to make my determination. And at the end, the IRS doesn't call you in um, just to result in a no change audit. Most audits, about 80% of them result in additional tax due. About 18% of them might wind up in a refund, and 2% could wind up in something called no change, where you don't owe them, they don't owe you. But at the end of this particular audit, I had a report of additional taxes due, and as they were hanging their heads, they didn't want to have to pay. And as they were leaving, I heard the CPA ask the taxpayer, "How did she get that out of you?" I just asked him a question before the CPA had gotten there. It wasn't really part of the audit, but it was certainly part of my information gathering. So it was, they're not sneaky, but it's like going to court. You want to make sure that you've got your I's dotted and your T's crossed and you're careful. So I want, if you care to consult with me, I want you to be IRS safe and stress free. And if you would like to get a hold of me, I've included my information here. Um, I can't do the Canvas
I,
slideshow and
I
run the
got
chat at the same
I
time.
got you covered,
Thank you.
Nellie. Wendy had just asked for your contact information and I dropped it in the chat for you. So
Okay.
you can screenshot that or you can check it out in the chat. Um, Greg had asked a question about filing as an LLC, and if I recall correctly, I think you said something about the IRS does not recognize the LLC as a filing um, designation. Is that
That's
correct?
that's correct. LLC is limited liability company. Um, it's not like Schedule C sole proprietor, partnership, corporation. Um, it's called a disregarded entity where you file a Schedule C. But LLC is a style of work, and you want limited liability.
Right.
So
It,
you want to
it
make sure
provides
that
you
you
with
protect it.
limited protection,
Yeah.
but in different aspects of your business, but it's not, part of your filing for the IRS. Um, I also, as Nellie was speaking, she mentioned several forms. I dropped what I could in terms of explanation or links to those forms from the IRS in the chat as well. Um, in addition, I dropped my W-2 or 1099 information that we had 2 weeks ago. So those are all, download links as opposed to save the chat and it's there. So keep that in mind if you're interested in any of that. And of course, grab Nellie's contact information. I'm going to open it up. She's got maybe 5-6 minutes before she has to run to her next meeting. Are there any questions, please?
Hey, I have a question. Back to the comment of contract. So, I have just after being in business for 10 years, I now realize that this is something that probably needs to be done. When we are doing a contract with a 1099 worker, do we need to designate? I mean, should we have it just be a very descript, like, elaborate what should be in my contract to designate that that is their position? And I do understand. So here's the fine line. I can't tell them when to be to work or when to work, but at an event, we kind of have to.
Well, contract law is a lawyer responsibility, but you are able to outline what you think should be in your contract and then discuss it with an attorney. Um,
So okay, so for example, so we do events and it is beneficial if we were there 1.5 hour prior to the start time. Can I put that in there?
oh, sure, you can put whatever you want. If this is
But
part of,
that's not really telling them when to be to work. Because I know there's a fine line. You never know if this is gonna come back and bite you, you know what I'm saying? And that's where I had some issues with a previous employee. And as time went on, I felt things were getting a little funky. And I do know that I cannot tell them when to go to work and when not to, because I didn't want them to come back and go, you know what I'm saying? So I just would say, I guess what I ended up doing was just continuing to ask them when they were going to show up for the load in.
well, certainly, you can say it would be beneficial for you if you would arrive,
So yeah,
so much
okay. So
time in advance so that we can coordinate and make sure that you're set up and ready to go. And that shouldn't be an issue for anybody who wants to do a responsible job.
you would think but sometimes, and again, here's the thing. Well, then you're probably not going to work for me. And
Okay.
so that's kind of how it ended is if you're going to be difficult, then I just can't use you.
Well, you can say, we expect you to do this, we expect this, we expect that. Um, so somebody's posted, Linda has spelled out what she wants in her contract. So perfect.
I think that was really good advice that contract law is a legal matter and not necessarily a tax issue.
Yeah.
But and Stacy already knows that I'm biased on this conversation here, but even if you don't ask them or tell them what time to arrive before the event starts, the event has a specific start time and a specific end time. And so they are providing the service within that allotted time, which means you're telling them when and where to perform. I know you don't want
That's,
to hear that.
but that is, that's just normal. That's just normal. It's not, you're not employing them. You're just sharing. This is what we do. This is what you need to do to play in this game.
Oh,
So,
So maybe it is a 1099, Stacy. But if you're giving them the photo booth and if you're giving them training, because that was one of the questions, and I know you're doing training.
Of course, and they use my equipment.
Yeah, so those are two key factors that say employee, not independent contractor.
It's
it's
a fine line.
it's the control issue, you know. So that's what the IRS is going to look for. Where's the control? If it's your equipment, your hours, they're showing up to do their thing. They're not using their own stuff. I think that's more employee than it is independent. But if they have their own photo booth
Mm-mm.
and they're showing up at your venue,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's yeah, yeah.
I know you don't want to hear this, but I will tell you, the expense, as Nellie has outlined, there are fees, fines, penalties, and late fees. And as the employer, you become responsible for both sides of, is it FICA?
yes,
Yeah.
Social Security and Medicare.
Right. So it's a huge expense. If and if I
It's a
understand,
huge expense.
yes, I understand. And if I understand Nellie correctly, because the reporting can happen on either side, because the employer can say, oops, I misclassified, and the employee can also report to the IRS, oops, I was misclassified. That could put you into, the
So,
pot.
but here's okay, so and I guess it would come down to the contract. You know what I'm saying? So if I had a contract with uh oh, that's my dad. Hang on a second. He's 90, so I gotta take.
Bless his heart. Well, it's pretty close to when I need to leave.
Yes, we
So
understand.
I
Um,
it doesn't matter what Stacy has in her contract. It's how much control does she have over the work being performed.
Okay, I will repeat that for her.
Okay.
Nellie, at the top of the hour, thank you so very much for this invaluable information. Please feel free to come visit anytime.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thank you, Nellie.
Hey, I can take her my oh my goodness.
you. Hey, I'm going to
Hey, I'm
close
gonna
on
Dad.
on her laugh
Oh,
and
you just
stop the
butt dialed
recording.
me.
Thanks for joining us for Event Ensemble.